Elena Vasquez stood in the grand hall of Nexus Prime, watching her world fall apart. The massive chamber stretched up toward a crystal dome that showed the stars beyond. 12 different alien species sat in their special chairs around the circular room. Each chair was made for their unique bodies. The tall blue Zilani had chairs that reached high into the air. The small round Borthik sat in cushioned pods. The spider-like Nexari hung from the ceiling in web-like structures. Elena represented Earth. She was the only human in the room. Her simple black suit looked plain next to the fancy robes and biosuits of the other ambassadors. She had hoped this day would never come, but deep down, she knew it would. Chancellor Thizis of the Zilani Empire stood up. His blue skin seemed to glow under the chamber's lights. His 3 eyes focused on Elena as he spoke in his deep voice. "The Galactic Council has made its decision," Thizis said. His words echoed through the hall. "Humanity is no longer welcome in this alliance." Elena felt her heart sink. 50 years. 50 years since humans first joined the Council. 50 years of trying to prove they belonged among the stars. All of it was ending now. "The human species has shown itself to be too violent," continued another voice. This came from Architect Zeph of the Crystalline Collective. The being looked like a walking gemstone. Their wars, their anger, their need to fight. This is not the way of civilized people. Elena wanted to speak up. She wanted to tell them about human art, human kindness, human love. She wanted to explain that humanity had worked so hard to be peaceful. They had stopped most wars on Earth. They had learned to work together. But she knew it would not matter. "They are also too primitive," added a Nexari representative, its voice coming through a translator device. "Their technology is basic. Their understanding of the universe is limited. They slow down our progress." Elena remembered when humans first met the Council 50 years ago. Earth had just developed basic space travel. The Council species had been traveling between stars for thousands of years. They had technology that seemed like magic to humans. Faster than light travel, quantum computers, energy shields that could stop any weapon. The Council had welcomed humanity then. They said humans showed promise. They shared some of their simpler technologies. They let human ships use their trade routes. They allowed human colonies on a few small worlds near Earth. But humans were always watched, always judged, always found lacking. "There have been incidents," said Speaker Yith of the Harmonic Assembly. The floating, jellyfish-like creature pulsed with colored light as it spoke. Human colonists fighting with each other. Human traders breaking agreements. Human explorers going into forbidden space. Elena knew about these incidents. Most were small problems that could have been solved with talking. Some were misunderstandings about different cultures. A few were mistakes by humans who did not know the complex rules of galactic society. But the Council saw them all as proof that humans could not be trusted. "We gave them chances," Thizis said. "Many chances. But they do not learn. They do not change. They remain what they have always been. Warriors who cannot find peace." The vote was swift. 11 species voted to exile humanity. Only the Ethereal Syndicate voted to let humans stay, and they did so quietly. Without explanation, Elena watched as Council security guards came toward her. They wore advanced armor that shifted color like oil on water. Their faces were hidden behind energy masks. They were not rough with her, but they made it clear she had to leave. "Ambassador Vasquez," Thizis said as she was led away. "Tell your people this. The galaxy is vast. There are many empty systems near your world. Stay there. Build what you can. But do not try to return to civilized space. We will be watching." Elena was escorted to her ship, a small vessel that looked ancient compared to the sleek craft of other species. As her pilot, Captain Martinez, Prepared for departure, Elena looked back at Nexus Prime through the viewport. The massive space station was beautiful, covered in lights and elegant curves. It was home to millions of beings from across the galaxy. Soon, no humans would walk its halls. "What now, Ambassador?" Martinez asked as they pulled away from the station. Elena was quiet for a long moment. She thought about Earth, about the billions of people who would learn they had been rejected by the galaxy. She thought about the human colonies that would be cut off from Council space. She thought about all the technology they would lose access to. "Now we go home," she said finally. And we tell them what happened. The journey back to Earth took weeks. Elena spent the time writing her report. She tried to explain how the Council saw humanity, how they viewed human emotions as weakness, how they saw human curiosity as dangerous, how they believed human independence was a threat to their order. When Earth appeared on their screens, Elena felt both relief and sadness. Relief to be home, but sadness for what humanity had lost. Or what they thought they had lost. The news spread quickly across Earth and the human colonies. Some people were angry. Some were sad. Some wanted to fight back against the Council. But many others had a different reaction. "Good," said Dr. Sarah Chun, one of Earth's top scientists, in a broadcast Elena watched later. "Now, we can do things our own way." Elena did not understand what Dr. Chun meant then. She would not understand for many years. But she would eventually learn that being rejected by the galaxy was not the end of humanity's story among the stars. It was the beginning of something much bigger. As Theises had said, the galaxy was vast, and humans had always been good at finding new ways to survive. Dr. Sarah Chun stared at the impossible readings on her computer screen. After 25 years of work, she had done it. She had cracked the secret of faster-than-light travel without any help from the Galactic Council. The laboratory around her was buried deep under the surface of Mars. No Council ships would find it here. No alien sensors could detect what she was doing. That was the point. Everything humanity built now had to be hidden. "Sarah, tell me you have good news," said Admiral Marcus Rivera as he entered the lab. The former Earth Navy officer now commanded humanity's secret space fleet. His hair had turned gray during the years since exile, but his eyes still burned with determination. "Better than good," Sarah said, pointing at her screen. "The exotic matter field is stable. We can bend space without the quantum crystals the Council uses. Our method is different, but it works." Sarah had spent decades studying the wreckage of an old Council transport that crashed on Titan years ago. The Council never bothered to recover it from the frozen moon. They probably forgot it existed. But Sarah had taken it apart piece by piece, learning how their faster-than-light drives worked. The Council method used rare, quantum crystals that could only be made in special facilities. These crystals were heavily controlled. No species could get them without Council permission. But Sarah found another way. Human scientists had always been good at making something from nothing. During Earth wars, they had built powerful weapons from simple materials. During the space race, they had reached the moon with computers less powerful than a pocket calculator. Now, they were building starships in secret. "How fast can it go?" Rivera asked. "About half the speed of Council ships," Sarah said. "But it will get us to nearby star systems in weeks instead of decades." Rivera smiled for the first time in months. "That's all we need. How soon can we build a real drive?" "Give me 6 months," Sarah said. "But Marcus, we need to be careful. If the Council finds out what we're doing." "They won't," Rivera said firmly. "They think we're still crying about being kicked out. They have no idea what we've been building." And humanity had been building a lot. All across the solar system, secret projects were taking shape. On the dark side of the moon, engineers were testing new ship designs. In the asteroid belt, miners were harvesting materials for hidden shipyards. On Europa, biologists were creating new life forms that could survive in harsh environments. Dr. Yuki Tanaka was one of those biologists. A laboratory on Europa was studying how to change human bodies to live on alien worlds. The council species had evolved on comfortable planets with perfect air and water. Humans had evolved on a world that tried to kill them every day. "We can make our people stronger," Yuki told Rivera during his visit to Europa. "Lungs that can breathe thin air, skin that can handle radiation, bodies that can live in low gravity for years." Yuki's work was controversial. Many humans thought changing their bodies was wrong, but others saw it as the next step in human evolution. If they could not find perfect worlds, they would make themselves perfect for any world. "The council species can only live on planets like their homeworlds," Yuki explained. "But we can live anywhere. That gives us an advantage they don't expect." Meanwhile, engineer Pavel Kozlov was working on ship designs in the asteroid belt. His team had built a hidden shipyard inside a large asteroid called Fortress. From the outside, it looked like any other rock floating in space. Inside, it was a massive factory. "Council ships are beautiful," Pavel said to his workers. "They look like art, but they are weak. Built for comfort, not for fighting or exploring." Pavel's ships looked different. They were blocky and rough, built from thick metal and ceramic armor. They had multiple engines, multiple life support systems, multiple everything. If one part broke, the ship could still function. "A council ship is like a flower," Pavel often said. "Pretty, but fragile. Our ships are like weeds. They can grow anywhere and are hard to kill." The first secret colony ship was ready 3 years after Sarah's breakthrough. The ship was called Pioneer, and it carried 500 volunteers to a system called Wolf 359. The star was close to Earth, only about 8 light years away. The council had surveyed the system decades ago and declared it worthless. The planets were too hot, too cold, or too radioactive for most life. Perfect for humans. Captain Lisa Wong commanded the Pioneer. She had been a merchant ship captain before Exile, trading between Earth and the human colonies near Council space. Those colonies were cut off now, left to survive on their own. But they were surviving, and some were even thriving. Wolf 359 system. Captain Wong announced to her crew as they dropped out of faster-than-light travel. "Our new home." The third planet was a hellish world covered in active volcanoes and poisonous gas. But it had water vapor in its atmosphere and metal ores in its crust. More importantly, it had geothermal energy that could power a colony for centuries. The colonists got to work immediately. They built their first settlement inside an old volcanic tube, protected from the surface radiation. They used remote-controlled robots to mine materials and build solar collectors. Within a year, they had a working colony of 3,000 people. The council never knew they were there. More ships followed. Every year, humanity sent out new expeditions to worthless systems the council had ignored. Rocky planets with no atmosphere. Frozen worlds far from their stars. Moons around gas giants where the radiation would kill most aliens. Humans made homes on all of them. The secret fleet grew as well. Admiral Rivera now commanded over 100 ships, all built in hidden shipyards scattered across dozens of systems. The ships were crude compared to council technology, but they were reliable. More importantly, they were invisible. Human engineers had developed stealth technology that made their ships nearly impossible to detect. The technology came from old submarine designs from Earth's oceans. If you could hide underwater, you could hide in the darkness of space. "The council thinks space is empty," Rivera told his captains during a secret meeting in the Wolf system. "They think if they can't see us, we're not there." They're wrong. By the 25th year after Exile, humanity had spread to 47 star systems. They had colonies on moons, asteroids, and planets that no other species would consider habitable. They had a fleet of ships that could travel undetected through Council space. They had technology that was different from, and in some ways better than, what the Council used. Most importantly, they had learned to survive without help from anyone. Dr. Sarah Chun, now in her 60s, looked at a star map showing all the hidden human colonies. Red dots marked systems with human settlements. Blue lines showed trade routes between them. Green areas showed where human ships patrolled in secret. "You know what this is?" she said to Admiral Rivera as they studied the map. "What?" Rivera asked. "This is an empire," Sarah said. "We've built an empire, and nobody knows it exists." Rivera smiled. "Not yet," he said. "But someday, the galaxy is going to get a very big surprise." Captain Maria Santos brought her ship out of faster-than-light travel near the edge of the Vega system. According to her charts, this should be empty space. The Galactic Council had surveyed this area 50 years ago and found nothing worth their attention. But Maria's sensors were picking up something unusual. "Captain," called Lieutenant Park from the sensor station, "I'm detecting artificial structures on the fourth moon of Vega Prime. Looks like mining equipment and habitation domes." Maria frowned. Humans had been secretly expanding for 50 years now, but they kept careful track of where everyone was. "No human colony should be here. Take us in closer," Maria ordered. "But keep the stealth fields active." As they approached the moon, Maria could see that someone had indeed built a settlement there. The structures looked rough and old, patched together from salvaged materials. This was not Council technology. It was not human technology either. "Captain, we're being hailed," reported Communications Officer Chun. "Audio only, on an old emergency frequency." "Put it through," Maria said. A gravelly voice came through the speakers, speaking accented Council standard. "Unknown vessel. This is Foreman Geck of the Free Miners Collective. You are approaching restricted mining operations. Please identify yourselves." Maria thought quickly. Free Miners Collective was not a name she recognized from any Council records. But she had heard rumors over the years about groups that operated outside Council space. "This is Captain Santos of the human exploration vessel Wanderer," she replied. "We didn't know this system was occupied. We're just passing through." There was a long pause. Then Foreman Geck spoke again, his voice now filled with surprise. "Did you say human? You people are supposed to be locked up in your home system. How are you out here?" Maria made a decision that would change everything. "That's a long story, Foreman. Mind if we come down and talk about it?" An hour later, Maria sat in a rough but comfortable meeting room built into the moon's mining complex. Across from her sat Foreman Geck, who looked like a shorter, stockier version of the Borthic species from the Council. His skin was darker and more scarred than any Borthic she had seen in Council records. "We are Korthic," Geck explained, pouring a strong-smelling drink from a metal bottle. "The Council calls us failed Borthic experiments. They tried to make us into better workers 50 years ago. When the experiments didn't work the way they wanted, they dumped us on empty worlds and forgot about us." Maria listened with growing anger. She had heard stories like this before, but never in such detail. "There are many of us out here," Geck continued. "The Council likes to pretend we don't exist. Species that failed their tests. Colonies that didn't meet their standards. Traders who asked too many questions. Pirates who stole from the wrong people." Geck gestured around the room. "We call ourselves the outcasts. We survive by helping each other. But it's hard. We don't have access to good technology. We can't trade in Council space. We have to hide from their patrol ships." Maria leaned forward. "What if I told you that hiding might not be necessary anymore?" Over the next few hours, Maria explained what humanity had been doing. How they had built hidden colonies across dozens of star systems. How they had developed their own technology. How they had learned to make homes on worlds the Council considered worthless. Gek listened with growing amazement. When Maria finished, he was quiet for a long time. "You really built all this in secret?" he finally asked. "We did," Maria said. "And we're still building. But Foreman, we've learned something important over the years. We're stronger when we work together with others." Maria paused, then continued. "The Council rejected us because they said we were too violent and primitive. But maybe the real reason was that we think differently. We don't believe some people are better than others. We believe everyone deserves a chance." Gek's eyes widened. "Are you offering us an alliance?" "I'm offering you a partnership," Maria said. "Equal partners. Share technology, share resources, share protection. Help us build something better than what the Council has." 6 months later, Admiral Rivara stood in a newly built conference room on the human colony world of New Geneva. Around the table sat representatives from 12 different outcast groups. There were Korthak miners, Selenid farmers who had been exiled for refusing to use slave labor. Vizari traders who had been banned for selling to forbidden worlds. And others. Dr. Yuki Tanaka presented her latest research to the group. "Our biointegration technology can be adapted for any species," she explained. Korthak workers could breathe in toxic environments. Selenid farmers could grow crops on worlds with no soil. Vizari traders could survive in the vacuum of space for short periods. The response was enthusiastic. For the first time in decades, these outcast species had hoped for real improvement in their lives. Engineer Pavel Kozlov showed off his latest ship designs. "We're building modular ships now," he said. "Each section can be customized for different species. A Korthak mining section, a Selenid agricultural section, a Vizari cargo section, all connected together." The outcasts loved the idea. Council ships were built for single species, forcing everyone else to use uncomfortable life support systems. Human ships could be adapted for anyone. "But how do we keep this secret from the Council?" asked Trader Vex of the Vizari. "If they find out we're working with humans, they'll hunt us down." Admiral Rivera smiled. "The Council doesn't pay attention to empty space. They only look at systems with valuable resources or strategic importance. We've been using that blindness for 50 years. Dr. Sarah Chun, now in her 70s, but still sharp, spread out a holographic star map. "Look at this," she said. "Red dots are human colonies. Blue dots are outcast settlements. Green lines are trade routes." The map showed an incredible network. Over 200 colonies spread across 47 star systems. Thousands of ships moving between them along hidden routes. A vast economy built on cooperation instead of exploitation. "The Council controls maybe 20% of the galaxy's civilized space," Sarah continued. "But we control the areas they think are worthless. And those areas are much larger than theirs." Captain Wong, who had commanded the first colony ship, now served as the human ambassador to the outcasts. "There's something else," she said. "We've been monitoring Council communications. They're having problems." Wong activated a recording device. The voice of Chancellor Dizes came through, speaking at a recent Council session. "The Ethereal Syndicate refuses to share their quantum mining technology. The Nexari claim the Harmonics are stealing their research. The Crystalline Collective demands exclusive rights to 3 star systems. This Council is falling apart because nobody trusts anybody else." Wong turned off the recording. "They're so busy fighting each other that they've stopped exploring new territory. They haven't sent an expedition beyond their borders in 20 years. Foreman Gek laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. "So while they argue about who gets what, we've been quietly taking everything they left behind. It's more than that," said Admiral Rivara. "We're building something they never could. A society where different species actually work together instead of just tolerating each other." The meeting lasted for 3 days. When it ended, the outcasts had agreed to form a formal alliance with humanity. They called it the Confederation of Free Worlds. The Confederation's charter was simple. All species were equal. All worlds were free to govern themselves. Technology and resources were shared freely. No one would be abandoned or forgotten. It was everything the Galactic Council claimed to be, but never actually was. As the representatives prepared to return to their worlds, Captain Maria Santos reflected on how much had changed since that first meeting with Foreman Gek. The humans were no longer alone in the galaxy. They had allies, friends, and partners. But more importantly, they had proven something the Council never believed: that different species could work together as equals. That strength came from cooperation, not domination. That the galaxy was big enough for everyone. The Council thinks they're civilized because they have fancy technology and pretty buildings, Maria told her crew as they prepared to leave New Geneva. But real civilization isn't about what you build. It's about how you treat others. The Confederation was growing stronger every day. Soon, the Council would learn that the galaxy had changed while they weren't paying attention. Chancellor Thizes stood on the bridge of the Eternal Glory, the largest ship in the Zolani expansion fleet. His 3 eyes focused on the star ahead. The Kepler 442 system had been surveyed by the Council decades ago and marked as suitable for future colonization. Now that the Council needed new worlds for their growing population, it was time to claim it. "Beginning final approach to Kepler 442, announced Captain Vorth from the ship's command station. "All colony ships are standing by for planetary survey." Thizes nodded with satisfaction. This would be his final achievement before retirement. He was now over 300 years old, ancient even by Zolani standards. His blue skin had faded to a pale silver, and his movements were slower than they once were. But his mind was still sharp. "Chancellor," called the sensor officer, "I'm detecting artificial structures in orbit around the 4th planet." Thizes frowned. "Artificial structures? Are you certain?" "Yes, sir. Large orbital platforms, defensive satellites, and what appears to be a major space station." Thizes felt a chill run through his body. No Council species had claimed this system. The records were clear. This was supposed to be empty space. "Put it on the main screen," Thizes ordered. The view screen flickered to life, showing the 4th planet of the Kepler 442 system. What Thizes saw made his hands shake with shock. The planet was green and blue, covered with oceans and continents. Massive cities sparkled on the dayside, their lights visible even from space. Orbital elevators stretched from the surface to huge space stations above. Hundreds of ships moved in organized patterns around the planet. This was not a dead world. This was home to millions of people. "Run a scan on those ships," Thizes said, his voice barely above a whisper. The results came back quickly. "Chancellor, the ships are using unknown technology. The designs don't match any Council database." "But sir, I'm detecting human biosignatures on the space stations." "Humans?" Thizes stared at the screen in disbelief. "That's impossible. Humans were restricted to their home system. They don't have faster-than-light technology." "Sir," the communications officer called out, "we're being hailed by the space station. They're asking us to identify ourselves and state our business." Thizes straightened up, trying to regain his composure. "Open a channel." A human face appeared on the screen. It was a middle-aged woman in a military uniform Thizes didn't recognize. Her dark hair was streaked with gray, and her brown eyes looked tired but alert. "This is Admiral Rivara of the Confederation Defense Fleet," the woman said. "You are entering sovereign territory of the free world of New Geneva. Please state your intentions. Dyes struggled to find words. Confederation Defense Fleet? Free World of New Geneva? None of this made sense. I am Chancellor Dyes of the Galactic Council, he finally managed to say. This system is unclaimed territory. We are here to establish a colony. Admiral Rivara smiled, but it was not a friendly expression. Chancellor Dyes, I've heard that name before. You're the one who exiled humanity from Council space 75 years ago. 75 years, Dyes corrected automatically. And yes, I signed the exile order. But that doesn't explain how you're here. Humans were denied access to faster-than-light technology. We built our own, Rivara said simply. We've been building a lot of things while you weren't paying attention. Before Dyes could respond, alerts began sounding throughout the ship. The sensor officer called out in alarm. Chancellor, ships are appearing all around us. Dyes turned back to the view screen just as dozens of human vessels dropped out of faster-than-light travel around the Council fleet. The ships were unlike anything in the Council database. They were bulky and angular, covered in armor and weapons. They looked more like flying fortresses than the elegant vessels Council species preferred. 300 ships, the sensor officer reported, his voice shaking. All armed. All targeting us. Admiral Rivera's image was still on the communication screen. Chancellor Dyes, you have entered our space with a military fleet without permission. Under Confederation law, this is an act of war. However, we prefer to solve problems through talking rather than fighting. Dyes found his voice again. War? You speak of war? Humans were exiled because you were too primitive and violent for civilized society. Rivera's expression hardened. Primitive? Let me show you something. The main screen split to show images from around the galaxy. Star system after star system appeared, each showing human colonies, space stations, and fleets. The images kept coming, dozens of them, then hundreds. This is what we've built while you thought we were locked away in our home system, Rivera said. 237 colonies across 47 star systems. A fleet of over 3,000 ships. An alliance with every species you've rejected or forgotten. Dyes stared at the images in growing horror. Each colony world showed millions of inhabitants. Each space station was larger than anything the Council had built. The fleets were vast, stretching across the galaxy. This is impossible, Dyes whispered. We would have detected this expansion. Our patrol ships would have found you. Your patrol ships only visit systems you consider valuable, Rivera explained. We built our empire on worlds you thought were worthless. Volcanic planets, frozen moons, radioactive asteroids. Places where only primitive species would choose to live. Dr. Sarah Chun appeared next to Rivera on the screen. She was now an elderly woman, but her eyes still burned with intelligence. We also built alliances, Dr. Chun said. With the Korthic miners you experimented on and abandoned. With the Selenid farmers you exiled for refusing to use slaves. With every species that wasn't good enough for your council. Dyes looked around his bridge. His officers were staring at their screens in shock. The Council's mighty expansion fleet was outnumbered 10 to 1. They had walked into a trap without even knowing it. What do you want? Dyes asked. We want recognition, Rivera said. Official recognition of the Confederation of Free Worlds. We want a seat at the Council table. And we want an end to the exile of humanity and our allies. And if we refuse? Dyes asked, though he already knew the answer. Rivera gestured toward the human fleet surrounding them. Then you'll discover that humans really are as violent as you always said we were. Captain Vorth leaned close to Dyes and whispered urgently. Sir, our long-range sensors are detecting massive fleets throughout the galaxy. They're not just in one sector. They're everywhere. Dyes closed his eyes. The truth was becoming clear. while the Council had spent decades arguing about territory and trade rights. Humanity and its allies had quietly built an empire that dwarfed anything the Council controlled. The Council governed maybe 200 systems in the galaxy's core. The Confederation controlled over 1,000 systems in the rim territories. The Council had 12 species as members. The Confederation included dozens of species that had been rejected by the Council. Most importantly, the Council was divided and suspicious. The Confederation was united by shared values of cooperation and equality. "Admiral Rivera," Dizes said slowly, "what are your terms?" Rivera smiled again, this time with genuine warmth. "Simple. We want to join the galactic community as equals, not as junior partners begging for scraps. We want the exile laws repealed. We want full diplomatic recognition. And we want Council policies changed to welcome all species instead of excluding them." Dizes was quiet for a long moment. He thought about his long life, about all the decisions he had made as Chancellor. The exile of humanity had seemed so logical at the time. They were violent, unpredictable, and technologically backward. They would only cause trouble for the advanced species of the Council. But now he could see the truth. Humanity hadn't been the problem. The Council's fear and prejudice had been the problem. By rejecting humanity, they had created their own rival. By excluding species they considered inferior, they had driven those species into the arms of their enemies. "I will need to consult with the other Council members," Dizes said finally. "Of course," Rivera agreed. "But Chancellor, understand this. The age when the Council could ignore entire sections of the galaxy is over. We're not asking for permission to exist. We're informing you that we do exist, and we're not going away." As the communication ended, Dizes slumped in his command chair. Around him, his officers waited for orders. But what orders could he give? They were completely outmatched, surrounded by forces they had never imagined existed. The greatest mistake of his life was about to become the Council's greatest defeat. And somehow, Dizes suspected that humanity's rise to power was just beginning. Elena Vasquez walked slowly through the grand halls of Nexus Prime, her cane tapping softly on the crystal floor. 75 years had passed since the last time she walked these corridors. Then, she had been escorted out in shame as humanity was exiled from galactic society. Now, she was returning as the lead negotiator for the most powerful alliance in the galaxy. At 97 years old, Elena had lived long enough to see everything change. Her hair was white, her hands were wrinkled, but her mind was as sharp as ever. Behind her walked a delegation from the Confederation of Free Worlds, Admiral Rivera, Dr. Sarah Chun, Captain Maria Santos, and representatives from dozens of species that the Council had once rejected. "Strange to be back here," Elena said to Admiral Rivera as they approached the main Council chamber. "Strange to be back as equals," Rivera replied. "Or maybe more than equals. The past 6 months had been a whirlwind of negotiations." After the confrontation at New Geneva, Chancellor Dizes had returned to Nexus Prime to report what he had found. The Council had spent weeks in emergency sessions, trying to understand how they had missed the rise of an entire galactic empire. At first, some Council members wanted to fight. The Nexari suggested attacking human colonies before they could grow stronger. The Crystalline Collective proposed an economic blockade. The Harmonics wanted to pretend the Confederation didn't exist and hope it would go away. But Chancellor Dizes, despite his old age and failing health, had shown surprising wisdom. He convinced the Council that war would be a disaster. The Confederation had larger fleets, controlled more territory, and included species that knew all the Council's weaknesses. More importantly, the Confederation had something the Council lacked: unity. "We created this problem," Dizes had told the Council in his final speech as Chancellor. We drove away species that could have been our allies. We treated differences as threats instead of strengths. Now we must face the consequences of our fear and pride. The council chamber looked exactly as Elena remembered it. The same crystal dome showing the stars. The same circular arrangement of chairs designed for each species. But today, there were new chairs. Chairs for humans, Korthek, Selenids, Vizari, and dozens of other species. Elena took her place at the head of the chamber. The position had been created specifically for this moment. The chair of the first speaker, representing the Confederation of Free Worlds. It was a position with more power than any single council member had ever held. The irony was not lost on her. 75 years ago, she had been told that humans were too primitive for civilized society. Now, humanity and its allies held the most important position in that same society. The Treaty of New Geneva is ready for signing, announced Arbiter Kef, the neutral mediator chosen to oversee the negotiations. The ancient robot had served the council for over 1,000 years, outlasting dozens of chancellors and hundreds of political changes. Elena looked around the chamber at the faces of the council members. Some looked angry. Some looked resigned. A few looked genuinely hopeful. But all of them looked defeated. The treaty was comprehensive. It officially recognized the Confederation of Free Worlds as a sovereign alliance. It repealed all exile orders against humanity and its allies. It granted the Confederation equal status with the Council in all galactic affairs. Most importantly, it restructured galactic government to be more inclusive and democratic. "Before we sign," Elena said, standing slowly with the help of her cane, "I want to say something." The chamber fell silent. Elena's voice, though aged, still carried the authority she had developed over decades of diplomacy. 75 years ago, I stood in this chamber as humanity was expelled from galactic society. We were told we were too violent, too primitive, too different to belong among civilized species. Elena paused, looking directly at the Zelani section where Thyses sat hunched in his chair. "Maybe you were right about us being violent. Humans have always been fighters, but you misunderstood what we fight for. We don't fight to conquer or destroy. We fight to protect what we love. We fight for our families, our friends, our values." Elena gestured toward the Confederation representatives. "When you exiled us, you gave us a choice. We could give up and accept our fate, or we could prove you wrong. We chose to prove you wrong, but we didn't do it alone." Elena pointed to Foreman Jek of the Korthek, who sat proudly in his new chair. "We found the species you had thrown away, the experiments you considered failures, the colonies you had abandoned, the traitors you had banned, and we learned something important." Elena's voice grew stronger. "Diversity isn't weakness. It's strength. Different species see problems differently. They find different solutions. They bring different gifts. When you work together instead of trying to control each other, amazing things happen." Dr. Sarah Chun stood up from her chair. "The Chancellor asked me to share some statistics," she said, activating a holographic display in the center of the chamber. The display showed comparative data between Council space and Confederation space. The numbers were shocking. In the 75 years since humanity's exile, Council space has grown by 12%. Confederation space has grown by over 400%. New data appeared. Council species have developed 3 major new technologies. Confederation species have developed over 200. More data. The Council has resolved 4 interspecies conflicts through negotiation. The Confederation has resolved 37 conflicts and prevented 12 wars. The final set of data was the most damning. Council member species report average satisfaction ratings of 60% with their government. Confederation member species report average satisfaction ratings of 94%. Elena sat back down as the data display faded. "We're not here to gloat," she said. "We're not here to punish anyone. We're here to offer partnership. Real partnership between equals." Chancellor Dice slowly stood up. His hands shook with age, and his voice was weak, but he spoke clearly. "I was the one who signed humanity's exile order," he said. "I believed it was the right decision at the time. I was wrong." The chamber was completely silent. "I have lived for over 3 centuries. I have seen the Council achieve great things, but I have also seen us become afraid. Afraid of change. Afraid of differences. Afraid of losing control." Dizes looked directly at Elena. "Ambassador Vasquez, when I exiled your species, I said the galaxy was vast, and there were many empty systems for you to build in. I was trying to be dismissive. I wanted to make you feel small and unimportant." Dizes smiled sadly. "You took my words and made them into something wonderful. You found the empty systems and filled them with life. You built something better than what we had." The old chancellor paused, gathering his strength. "The Zilani Empire formally requests membership in the Confederation of Free Worlds." The request sent shockwaves through the chamber. The Zilani had been founding members of the Council, one of its most powerful species. Their defection would effectively end the Council as it had existed. Elena was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled. The Confederation would be honored to welcome the Zilani people as equal partners. One by one, other Council species made the same request. The Ethereal Syndicate, who had been the only species to vote against humanity's exile. The Harmonics, who had grown tired of the Council's rigid bureaucracy. Even some of the Nexari, who saw opportunity in the Confederation's expansion. By the end of the day, 8 of the 12 Council species had requested to join the Confederation. The remaining 4 chose to maintain their independence, but sign mutual defense and trade agreements. The Galactic Council, as it had existed for over 2,000 years, was dissolving. In its place rose something new. A true galactic democracy, where all species had a voice. Alana signed the treaty with a pen made from metal mined in the first human colony beyond Earth. As her signature completed the document, she thought about all the people who had made this moment possible. Dr. Sarah Chun and her breakthrough in faster-than-light travel. Admiral Rivera and his secret fleets. Captain Wong and the brave colonists who settled hostile worlds. All the outcasts who had believed in humanity's promise of equality. "What now?" asked Captain Santos as the signing ceremony ended. Alina looked out through the crystal dome at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, human ships were exploring new systems. Human colonies were growing on impossible worlds. Human scientists were making discoveries that would benefit all species. But most importantly, humanity was no longer alone. They had built something that would last, a galactic society